Before we get started, I just wanted to point out that when I introduced the first book, I initially called it by the wrong title. It's actually called A Book for Sad Pets, and eventually, later on in the show, I do correct myself, but at first I got the title wrong, so just to point that out. Okay, on with the show. This is Tim.
I'm Mulele.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim with Mulele in Tokyo on Skype. How are you doing?
I'm good. And you?
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. This time our comics ended up both being from repeat creators, people we've talked about before, talked about their work. First of all, let's look at Kristin Tipping's book. She's having a book, conventionally published, printed through a publisher, local to Minneapolis. And it's not a comic, strictly speaking, but there's an argument for it maybe being a comic or a set of one-panel cartoons. I don't know. It is sort of sequential, though. Mm-hmm. It's called Sad Pets Slideshow. And each page has like a sentence and a drawing. And I mean, the text does all tie together. They're not, individual like one-panel cartoons. There's a through line to it. I took it to be a pet is talking and asking his or her owner it says, tell me I'm smart, tell me I'm pretty, tell me I'm smart, tell me I'm of value to someone, and so on. And the accompanying picture generally reflects something about that text. And it's very, very short read, would be appropriate for kids, very small kids, maybe. But adults can find something of interest in it too. The pictures they look to be maybe drawn in ink and then watercolored. Perhaps.
Looks like digital watercolor.
Okay.
But I just got a comment. I'm not sure about the 4 kids idea. Now it seems to be formatted like a picture book for kids, but the themes in it are not quite there. There's a lot of sadness and a lot of loneliness.
That's true, although I wonder if it would work on different levels for different ages.
Perhaps, but what I'm picking up is themes would be kind of a conversation between a kid and an adult. The kid wouldn't be able to just read it, and I can imagine a kid reading this on their own and having questions about what exactly it's about. A lot of these talk about the end of pets, or the abuse of pets, or the way that we kind of control pets. And these are all kind of the heavy side of having a pet. And I can see like the dog wearing the cone collar, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bite itself. Or the one that really struck me was the one that says Goldie, and then it has 2 kind of handwritten on the side of its dog dish, and then that's crossed out and it says 3, puppy eating from the dog dish. That's kind of heavy and also kind of complex. It takes you through not one generation but 3 generations of the same dog, and there's a kind of carelessness that's given to naming it the same thing as the previous dog. And so there's a whole lot of different emotions, and there's a story there,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily a happy one. So if a kid who has a pet, but hasn't experienced death or replacing the pet or something like that yet, that's a hard one to go through.
Mm. Yeah, that's true.
But I do agree that it is a somewhat sequential book, especially at the end,
Mm-hmm.
with the last two panels in particular. I don't know. Are we talking spoilers here? Is such a thing for this?
Could you spoil a book that's like 15 pages?
Yeah. I can't say that it doesn't have impact, but the drawing is fairly simple, and the message is equally simple, but kind of heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see myself buying a book like this if a portion of the proceeds were being given to an animal shelter, a charity, or some other such, or that there's something else there. But just the book by itself is a little bit too heavy for me to put on my bookshelf like that. It would have to have some other purpose. Because for me, it is an interesting idea, but it's a heavy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also kind of reminds me why I don't have pets.
Yeah, I mean, I loved having pets when I was growing up, and my youngest daughter is dying to have a pet. But I mean, well, biggest reason is the cost. But yeah, there's also, they say, every pet is a tragedy waiting to happen, because you're probably going to outlive it and have to say goodbye to it.
Well, I mean, some parents get pets for their kids just so the kid can learn about death. But for my son, he got a tortoise, a small turtle,
Mm-hmm.
and basically expect that thing to outlive him. So I don't think he's going to quite get that lesson. We got it for him when he was 10, and now he's 18. So I don't know what he's going to do with it once he goes off to university. If he's just going to flush it, give it to someone else, or let his mother take care of it. Who knows? But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the comic and thinking, yeah, no pets for me.
But yeah, you're talking about how it's sequential at the end. Yeah, I had to look at it a second. There's not the last panel, but the two panels before it. It appears to be the same dog, like a few years apart, because it's bigger in the second one, and the person whose lap the dog's head is on has changed clothes. Yeah, and tell me you love me because I'll always love you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there is some sequentialness to it, so I think it fits in on critiquing comics.
Yeah. Also, I want to just quickly comment on the art style. The art style seems a bit of a departure from the last project that we went over by this artist.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what's the name of the last project?
Oh, Evil Witch Alley.
Yeah. So this style seems to be more realistic yet more simplified, and a little bit cruder in its rendering. Almost feels like it was drawn by a different person. So I found that kind of curious, and I was wondering what happened, or why the art style was changed in that way. I don't think it's a bad change. I'm just kind of curious as to why.
Maybe she just thought it fit this project better.
Yeah, no, I'm totally for that. The The art and the format should fit the project.
I'm looking at the publisher's website. This is Uncivilized Books. Yeah, I guess the name on the cover of her book is A Book for Sad Pets. So maybe the title got changed a little bit. Or the file name of our PDF is not the title of the book, apparently. So yeah, A Book for Sad Pets.
So is it for the pet or is it about the pet? Because just sad pets doesn't necessarily say who it's for or about. But it's implied either way. That is a little bit more decisive.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, what is the purpose of the book, or is there any statement that goes along with it?
I'm looking at the book on the website. It says, for the description, we love our pets, don't we? A Book for Sad Pets is a beautifully illustrated encapsulation of just how fraught and emotional the bond we have with our pets can get. But is it just about our pets? In just a few pages with a few words and a handful of illustrations, newcomer Kristin Tipping will take you on an emotional roller coaster and examines the promises of loyalty we make so casually. A perfect present for the pet owner in your life, or for your unrequited love.
There's some deep thought in this book, so I wouldn't say it's a happy-go-lucky or carefree present. But yeah, there's a lot of care here.
Yeah, and just the kind of the feeling of the narrator's kind of desperation. There's one page where there's no illustration; it just says "please, please, please."
Yeah,
that page is maybe the most powerful in a way.
Yeah.
Even without an illustration, or because it doesn't have an illustration, it just kind of sticks out to me. I think it was meant to. That's why there's no illustration.
Yeah, perhaps.
Anything else about this?
No, not really. It's just kind of a curious departure from the artist's previous work, and I'm more curious as to what prompted this rather than what it is at this point.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that.
The book itself seems to have just a very, very heavy message, but without context. It's I'm trying to think of something comparable, and I thought of a few things that really don't make sense. But anyway, yeah, I would like more context.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I don't know if it's meant to be like a animal rights appeal, don't be cruel to animals, or is it meant to sort of express sort of a kind of desperation for love in general by anyone? I suppose you could see it in different ways.
Yeah.
So, of course, Mulele and I are also doing on Patreon a podcast about my finally watching all the Marvel movies. And we're calling it Tim Catches Up on the MCU. Now, Mulele has been pushing me for a while, including on Critiquing Comics, to get caught up on the Marvel movies, as I had only watched the first two Iron Man movies and then never got any further. And after a while, I started wondering, why did he keep pushing me on it? So I asked him the other day, but what did you say then?
Well, there were a couple of reasons, actually. The first being that I kind of like the movies. And I feel that there is something remarkable in the achievement. And it's not just the fact that they made 21 movies, 22 movies.
And counting.
Yeah, counting. Well, by the end of phase 3, it'll be 23 movies. But the way they've woven it together, the fact that it actually worked, and that it is the correct time in Americana, at least, to do such a project, that people are actually willing to go there. If you imagine this project maybe 20 years ago, it wouldn't have worked at all. Can you imagine spending $200 million per episode for a TV show, and one season is going to last like 2 or 3 years? It's kind of a ridiculous notion. But I don't know how close Game of Thrones got to that. But anyway, my point is, with the MCU, I found myself actually curious about superheroes again, because not because the stories are perfect, but more for what they attempted to do, seeing the things that didn't work and the things that did work, and what we're finally left with, which I think overall works incredibly well. That is something to be studied, something to be to pick apart and to understand how it works, at least in my mind. But the thing of it is, around me, and this is my other big reason, there aren't that many people who are willing to sit down and watch all these movies with me. Not my son, not my mother, my girlfriend. Most of my friends aren't that interested in superhero movies. So, Tim, you're my last hope.
I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi.
In a desperate situation to watch.
I would seem to be part of the target audience for these movies, except, as has been well known since the very beginning of deconstructing comics, I just don't tend to get around to watching movies. That's kind of always been even when I was like a teenager, I mean, I'd go to some movies, but there would be other movies that I kind of thought I wanted to watch, and I'd never get to them. I always go to the Star Wars movies when they come out. A lot. After the first 3, I think all the others I've only seen once a piece. I'm done. I'm good. Okay, I saw it. Move on. So it wasn't because I wasn't interested in the Marvel movies necessarily. It's just that I didn't get around to it. So yeah, I mean, on some level, I'm glad for the push to finally get because, of course, I saw the first 2 Iron Man, and then, Thor came out and Captain America, and I actually get around to watching them, and then they just kept coming, and it got, kind of, intimidating. Like, oh, how am I going to catch up on all these movies?
Well, I mean, even for myself, I'm the type of guy who will watch 100 to 200 films in a year. So, and that not including TV shows or special stuff on Netflix, but in the middle of the MCU, I did start to get a little bit of fatigue, and I'm kind of like, okay, you had my attention, I was watching this stuff, but now I'm a little bit lost as to what the purpose of all this is. We seem to be treading water here. And I kind of look at some of those films in the middle and think, okay, they're kind of like the pointless exposition in some film where they're kind of loading you up for the big finale. And so, yeah, they're kind of a must trudge through to get to that big finish. It's a little unfortunate that they're that way, but I mean, I think it did hit a little bit of a lull for me. And yeah, it's not that I had planned to like step out of the Marvel universe and just say, okay, I'm done. But it was more of I'm not going to invite my friends anymore to go see this. I won't push like Noriko my friend and one of my co-authors. I won't push her to come see the movies with me, even though she has a Marvel Comics Avengers, X-Men, and Fantastic Four Assemble poster in her house. She's had it for at least a dozen years, but and she likes comics, she likes superheroes, but like halfway through, she was like, "I'm out. I'm just not interested." And I said, "Let's go to Endgame," and even then, she was like, "Nah." So, yeah, there's because of your history with comics or your understanding of comics, I feel absolutely justified in force feeding you Marvel movies. But I'm also very appreciative that you've got that you've read a lot of the source material. I mean, I haven't. I was never into Avengers, not really into Spider-Man. I read some X-Men, but only in the middle for a couple of issues, and then I dipped. So, I mean, for me, a lot of it is either harkening back to my childhood or just something I've never read. So, like, even on the last Avengers, what did we review last time?
Well, so as we record this, the most recent one we've recorded is the first Avengers movie, which will be on Patreon by the time people hear us talking here.
Yeah, so not to spoil too much, but I was kind of asking you about some of the background of the Avengers and what was from the comics and what did they make up for the movie. And for me, that was actually kind of nice seeing or hearing about that side. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me, for those reasons, not only am I down for watching it again, I'm really enjoying talking about it some more.
So if people are listening and would like to hear our MCU podcast, it's at patreon.com/deconcomics. And if you pledge at least $4 a month, you can hear Tim catches up on the MCU. You can hear Spider-Man 1963 and a few other things that we've put up there over the past couple of years. So check it out.
You like cheap comic books, right? Well, I'm Professor Allen, and I talk about cheap comic books on the Quarterbin podcast. In every episode, I'll dissect a single comic from my collection, as long as I paid no more than 25 cents for the issue. Forget about $4 new comics that you can read in 4 minutes, or crossover events that can cost $100 to collect. Join me in the Quarterbin, where even bad comics are a bargain, and good ones are a steal. The Quarterbin podcast is part of the Relatively Geeky Podcast Network. Visit us at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com or search Relatively Geeky or Quarterbin Podcast in iTunes. I guarantee it'll be worth every penny.
Okay, so the other comic for this episode is Spencer and Locke 2. We did talk about the first Spencer and Locke miniseries, what was it, a year or two ago? Well, it actually has a Wikipedia page. And according to that, it came out in April 2017, the very first issue. And this is published by Action Lab. And of course, as we immediately recognized on the first issue, this is incorporating some aspects of Calvin and Hobbes into a police story. But according to the Wikipedia page, it's also parodying Frank Miller's work. It mentions Sin City, Daredevil, and Dark Knight Returns. It's certainly that mood. Yeah,
I can see Sin City a little bit. I can see Daredevil as well. Right. Frank Miller as an ism. Yeah.
So there's a second series now. 3 issues are out, and the publisher sent us PDFs, and the 4th one is coming out in July, so probably shortly after you hear this. I don't know the exact date. But we've read all 3 issues. I didn't get around to looking at the first series again. I was kind of curious about what differences I might notice, but I didn't get around to digging it up. But it's the same, obviously the same concept. And now we've got sort of the villain of the piece, who is apparently a military veteran who has, well, I'm not sure if he's gone nuts or actually, well, there's kind of a spoiler about it at the end of issue 3, so I won't go there. But from his point of view, the first page of every issue is based on Beetle Bailey.
Yeah.
Called Roach Riley. That's the character's name. And it's not a spot-on take on Beetle Bailey, but it's recognizable as that.
Yeah.
It's a little rough. It's not Mort Walker's line at all. But you can tell what it's supposed to be.
Well, it was the same for the Calvin and Hobbes bit, but
well, yeah, that's true. Although I think he got that down a little better.
Yeah.
And we should mention the creators' names. Written by David Pepose and art by Jorge Santiago Jr. I don't know. Having talked about the first one already, I'm not sure what more we can say about this. Was there anything that stuck out to you about it?
Well, I kind of don't remember the first one, except the core concept and that it was kind of interesting. I really liked the I liked the core concept, and reading the previously in page. Didn't realize how fucked up the ending of that first series was. But I don't think I read the entire thing. I think I didn't have enough time, or
I think when we reviewed it, we didn't have the entire series, and I think later I might have gone back and bought the remaining issues on Comixology or something, but I didn't quite remember the ending either.
Yeah, but kind of reading through that, that's rough, and it goes far beyond the Calvin and Hobbes grow up and become cops take that I thought was so brilliant. But this one with the Beetle Bailey, and then with I guess takes on other comics, like Dick Tracy shows up and gets promptly killed.
That's what that was supposed to be. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Really? Okay.
I wasn't quite sure what that character was doing there, but now I get it. Okay.
Yeah, so there was that, and there...
for some reason he was wearing red
rather
than yellow.
Yeah. Well, I mean... Hobbes is a panther instead of a tiger, so...
Yeah, I guess, that's it. But yeah, if I look at him now, sure, yeah, the hat should have been a giveaway.
Yeah, and I think in issue 2, there's Marmaduke and what's it, that Viking comic?
Hagar the Horrible?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a Viking, and I didn't get what the Viking was doing there. I just kind of blipped past it. But
no, I think they were just trying to pull in all the different comics of a certain era.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, the guy with the little glasses that he was interrogating, the guy looks very familiar, but I can't place the comic.
Oh, I'll bet that's supposed to be Dilbert.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so...
Oh, yeah, and I see Marmaduke and Hagar now. Yeah. And in the panel before that guy's got to be a comics character, too. Is that Ferdinand, maybe?
I don't know.
I think that's Ferdinand.
Okay. But, see... This is the page though where I finally realized that no, I was not having it. This was not this was not working for me. Because although I thought the Calvin and Hobbes bit was brilliant, now they're just copying themselves, and it's been brought to kind of a farcical level instead of like a careful reflection on the childhood of a 40-something-year-old person who used to read Calvin and Hobbes, but came from a very fucked up life. The other problem that I had was that a lot of the writing and drawing were so rough in their in the movement of the story that sometimes I was actually getting lost. I didn't quite follow what was going on because he's constantly dipping in and out of his own fantasies. And there seems to be no well, let me put it this way. You have characters based on other comics who seem kind of like fantastic jokes. It's very there's a lot of winking at the camera with that stuff. And then we've got the main character, Calvin, who is hallucinating his best friend, which is actually his pet. And it sometimes seems that other characters know that the pet gives him strength, or not pet.
Stuffed animal.
Stuffed animal. Yeah. The stuffed animal gives him strength, and that he needs it to do whatever he's going to do. And other times it seems that people don't know why he's talking to himself so much. The idea of him being a cop who's a little bit crazy and a little bit of a loose cannon, I totally get that. That kind of works. But in book number 1, or what I read of it, what I remember is that he was kind of the only one like that. And there was a reason for that, a very specific reason for that. But in this comic, it seems like everybody is like that.
Yeah, well, the soldier has a kind of invisible friend too. I think he calls him the Major.
Yeah, that was.
He was like a drill sergeant with a ranger hat on.
Yeah. And later we come to what is the name of the character? She appears at the end of issue 2.
Are you talking about his daughter, Hero?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she looks like she's supposed to be 5 or 6, and she talks like she's 25.
And she calls herself Captain Astounding. And from what I could tell, she wears a purple hoodie that happens to have 2 bullet holes right where the eyes need to go. And then she steals a gun from a dead cop and starts talking to her stuffed bunny, Mr. Rabbit. And at that point, there's just got to be something in the water for this town because everybody's fucking doing the same thing. And although I kind of found the character Captain Astounding cute, she does not belong in this comic.
I agree.
It's like if you didn't have Abbott and Costello, you just had Abbott and Abbott. It just doesn't work. There's no straight man to kind of point at the ridiculousness of it all and say, hey, wait a minute. And perhaps the reporter is supposed to be that, but she's not in it enough with any of the characters long enough to actually point at anything. She's off doing her own investigation, which has its own consequences. So it kind of seems like none of it really works together well. They don't really work together. They're all doing their own things.
Well, and at least the reporter's not talking to a stuffed animal.
No, she's not. But also I have to say the thought balloons that they use, the font is a little bit small compared to the rest of it, and I thought that wasn't too good.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship between the daughter and the father seemed to have problems because all she would get is 2 panels where I guess it'd be Spence. Spence is the guy, and Locke is
Spencer is the Panther, I think.
Okay, then Locke would walk up to his daughter and say, "Daughter, you're the most important thing in my life." And then another panel where he's like, "But I can't be with you right now." And then he's just walking away from her, back to her face, saying, "I love you. See you later." And it's like, wait a minute, this is kind of ridiculous. And the whole story just kind of goes in weird directions. And I'm sorry, for the 3 issues that I read, none of it seems to be really coherent.
Yeah, well, I especially felt like that at the beginning of issue 3, because at the end of issue 2, Locke is buried in rubble after a bomb goes off, and so he spends the first part of issue 3 hallucinating that he's in World War II.
Yeah.
And it didn't fit with anything for me. I mean, I wasn't sure if he was trying to say something by analogy or if it was just kind of a good bit or what. But
if it were supposed to be a good bit, it would actually be good and it wouldn't run so long. Also, it kind of mashes into this reflection on his life as a child and how he's coming to terms with it. And I was reading this thinking, did he have issues with his childhood that he wasn't coming to terms with in this story arc? It's like out of left field. Yeah, we know he has problems, but my understanding was that he'd come to terms with that and had accepted it in the first arc and is now moving on. Apparently not, because suddenly he's in the middle of this shit. And then he's like, do I want to die here or do I want to help my daughter? I think I'm going to help my daughter. And he gets out of the rubble. And it's like, wait a minute. What is all this now? And I'm sorry, but it was really, really rough. The more I think about it, the less coherent it seems. And it's like listening to a drunk man ramble on about whatever the fuck, UFOs. And you kind of get it, but at the same time, you're just like, why are we doing this?
Well, the other thing that bothered me was I'm not going to spoil exactly what happened, but at the end of issue 3, we see a couple of characters who turn out to be very important to the story and have appeared in exactly one scene in the first issue.
Yeah.
And I think he needed to include them more so that I wouldn't be saying, who are these people? And flipping back through all 3 issues trying to find when they appeared before. Because I'd forgotten all about them.
The characters are not present enough in their character design. They're just so plain as to look like background extras. And so when they cut to that character and say whatever, I'm just thinking, wait a minute. There's no cue, like their surroundings or anything to kind of suggest.
Yeah, we go straight from a different scene to the face of one of the characters as she's opening the door, from the reporter's point of view, accusing her of what I'm not going to reveal. But there's no groundwork laid. I didn't feel like. Yeah,
to be honest, it follows the exact structure of The Big Sleep, and or at least so far, minus the mystery murder that who is it? Raymond Chandler can't quite decide who killed him. Sorry if you don't get the reference, but anyway, the plot's kind of taken from that, but it's given that there's a lot of meat there. You don't have to squeeze such a plot or such scenes into 22 pages. it could have been a lot more than what they left us with, and they could have actually slowed it down a little bit to really enjoy it. There's no the presence of each character in each scene is so light and so throwaway because there's no investment in what the characters are going through. I felt there was a lot more in the first issue. Maybe that's because they were still working out what the concept was and wanted to kind of explore it themselves. Here, they're like off and running, and if you didn't read issue 1, then it might be a little bit difficult to catch up.
Yeah, I'm guessing that this is a 4-issue series again, like the first one, and I feel like, especially with the third issue, I'm getting the impression that he's running out of pages and he's trying to cram in as much as he can.
Yeah, so it's chopped a little too thin. And sorry, to be honest, if you don't have enough pages to do your story, then perhaps you should not do that story this time.
Yeah, or take out some complications so that it'll fit nicely.
Oh, I think they took out every 5th panel in this story.
Well, I think, like, take out the dream about World War II, for example.
Yeah, that's true. That was a bit much. Yeah. But, I mean, I think it could be a better story with a little more attention to detail and a little more time to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I don't know, maybe coming off of an 80 or 90 page graphic novel for arc 1 to suddenly jump into something the size of Bone, Jeff Smith's Bone, for arc 2 is a little bit daunting. But I don't know, I think it needs a little more space to breathe.
No rat creatures, though.
No rat creatures?
Yeah, like in Bone.
Yeah.
You mentioned The Big Sleep. I saw that once on an airplane. Now, I know that it famously doesn't make any sense, but people like it because of the performances.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, on a plane, I need to watch something simple anyway, because if it gets too complicated, and I'm feeling kind of sleepy, and I couldn't make any sense of it.
Of The Big Sleep?
Yes.
Well, the thing is, there was a murder in there that was never explained in the film, and so people at the time asked the director, "What about that murder?" And the director's like, "Ask the writer." They asked the writer of the novel, and he's like, "I don't know." And so, yeah, I don't know what the. Yeah, but it got overly complicated, and I think the writer just lost one, and the director just copied the writer and put it in anyway. But how the director of the film didn't analyze what was going on and just. But anyway, Blade Runner followed the pattern of The Big Sleep, and if I remember correctly, Blade Runner also has a problem with counting how many replicants he's got to actually hunt down. There's like one extra or something. But yeah, apparently Big Sleep and films based on The Big Sleep can't count.
What do you mean exactly by following the pattern of The Big Sleep?
Rich, important family contacts a detective, offers something to fix some sort of problem. Big Lebowski does the same thing. Although I think The Big Lebowski is a little bit more coherent than the other films. And a lot more fun to watch, just like straight up watch. Blade Runner's great, but that's not a sit down and chuckle kind of movie. That's a watch it and brood about the future. Actually, Blade Runner is supposed to happen this year in November, so.
Okay, we'll be on the lookout for that then.
Yeah. Flying cars and replicants.
And it's, at least part of it's in Tokyo, right?
No, completely in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. It was sort of based on an idea of Tokyo, though, isn't it?
Well, the director, Ridley Scott, lived part of his early life in Osaka, so he added a lot of Japan-isms to it. But the film takes place in Los Angeles. The book takes place in San Francisco. But beyond that, nothing that I remember from the book being in Tokyo. I think it was Necromancer was in Tokyo.
Okay. Yeah, I have watched Blade Runner once, but it's been a while.
Yeah. But anyway, for this comic, slow down, take your time, and give me something to care about.
Okay, so if you'd like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. Any final words from you?
Yeah, our next Marvel film is
Iron Man 3, right?
Iron Man 3, right? Okay, but I'm pretty sure Iron Man 3 will not be like at the end of Iron Man 3, you'll realize that you want to watch the next one. I do suggest, in all seriousness, that you should watch 2 films.
Okay, well, I can't promise I'll watch them on the same day, but do you want to do like 2 together in one podcast episode, or?
I would be okay with that. After Iron Man 3 comes, sorry, no, you're not going to want to do that. After Iron Man 3 is Thor: The Dark World. These are both considered to be quite low in the MCU's appreciation.
Well, yeah, I remember hearing when Iron Man 3 came out that people didn't like it so much.
Yeah, Iron Man 3, I kind of liked it for some of its dialogue. I always liked that writer. What's his name? Did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. He did the most recent Predators, or the Predator, or whatever it's called, which was very bad, by the way. But I like the writer. The film was okay, from what I remember. I'll watch it again just to kind of give my fresh take on it. But my old take on it is that it wasn't as bad as everybody hates it. But Thor: The Dark World, I do not remember. I only remember that everybody hates that one too. It might be better to do both of them and just kind of get them out of the way, because, if they are as bad as everybody says, then you can have one podcast of a hate fest on these 2 films and then move on.
Okay, I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page. So Iron Man 3 writers are Drew Pearce and Shane Black.
Yeah, Shane Black was it. He's also director.
Yeah, he is. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yes, we will be getting to these. I'm looking forward to Winter Soldier. I guess that's supposed to be pretty good.
Winter Soldier is fucking awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is the film that pisses me off the most when I think about, that is the film that makes me so angry about Captain Marvel. There's one scene in there specifically that when I think about Captain Marvel, I get really angry.
Okay, well, we can discuss that when the time comes, especially since I actually have seen Captain Marvel already.
Well, actually, when it comes time to do Captain Marvel, I'm going to watch it again to really kind of get into the film proper, rather than just ride some sort of train of hate. So,
okay, that sounds like a good idea.
We'll discuss it in a mature fashion.
Okay, great. So, until next time, this is Tim.
And Mulele.
And thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics. Mulele is at Mulele Redux on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Decon Comics on Twitter. Next week on Deconstructing Comics, the classic Batman graphic novel The Killing Joke, through the lenses of dealing with trauma and the treatment of women in storytelling. I discuss with 2 people who presented on these topics in relation to The Killing Joke at the Bowling Green State University Batman in Popular Culture Conference in April. See you then.